Morning people, welcome back to F Politics. Because the judge in the Southport case has officially declared that the Southport attack was not in fact an act of terrorism, that means that when Nigel Farage was implying that it was an act of terrorism on the day after the attack, he was wrong.
The prosecution have made it clear that these proceedings were not acts of terrorism within the meaning of the terrorism legislation, because there is no evidence that Rudikabana's purpose was to advance political, religious, racial, or ideological cause. I must accept that conclusion.
That means that Nigel Farage helped incite what was quite objectively the worst national terrorism crisis that the UK has seen in years based on a lie. Because other than the UK riots that we saw last summer, I can't think of another time in my lifetime where there was that much violence spread so widely across the country for a prolonged period of time. The only thing that comes to mind is the Troubles, and I was 8 when that ended. So because that quite obviously proves to anybody watching that Nigel Farage is a threat to national security, he's now trying to rewrite history.
I said the next day, because I could see the crackpot conspiracy theories that were going around the internet. You know, in a vacuum, who knows what can come and fill that space.
He's arguing that he said what he said on the day after the attack because he didn't want people to come up with dangerous conspiracy theories. So he prevented people from believing dangerous conspiracy theories by giving them one of his own.
The police say it's a non-terror incident, just as they said the stabbing of an Army Lieutenant Colonel in uniform on the streets of Kent the other day was a non-terror incident. I just wonder whether the truth is being withheld from us.
And given that Nigel Farage just a couple of months prior had said that almost half of British Muslims support terrorism, when he implied that the Southport attack was a terror incident, he was pointing the finger at Muslims. And then later that day, the rioters tried to burn down a mosque in Southport, even though there has been no evidence that Axel Rudikabana, the killer, was Muslim in any way, shape or form. And yes, there was an Al-Qaeda handbook in his possession, but also documents about Nazi Germany and clan cleansing in Somalia. The guy was basically just looking up anything that involved killing lots of people without any specific ideology. So Nigel Farage helped tie this killing incorrectly to religion. And even now, the Reform Party is putting out statements that are trying to make this a political killing. So you know when we talk about people politicizing tragedies, no, this is the literal definition of that.
The absence of evidence of a motivation means that these acts have not met the legal definition of terrorism.
Because the evidence shows that Axel Rudikabana had no ideology, had no political affiliations, no religious beliefs, and yet the Reform Party and Nigel Farage are trying to make this political and religious. They are literally politicizing the murder of 3 small girls. Which is why they're so desperate to rewrite history, for example.
And I asked the question, was this man known to the authorities? Can we please know the truth? And Jonathan Hall KC, who's the terrorism czar, said many, many times, tell the public as much as you can without prejudicing the trial.
But that's not all he said. He also implied that it was an act of terrorism, which is what sent people after Muslims. He's deliberately changing the narrative.
And it's not a difficult question to answer, were they known to the authorities?
No.
Because if they'd come back and said, yes, but it's complicated and we're going to come back with full information, all of us would have backed off and said, okay, fine.
And that's the argument they're trying to push, that it's because information was withheld that people got angry and started rioting. So what we're being asked to believe is that if Keir Starmer had come out and said that yes, the killer had been referred to the authorities 3 times and they'd done nothing to prevent this killing, people would have been less angry and less inclined to riot. And if the information about him being in possession of an Al-Qaeda handbook had come out, that would have made mosques more safe? That is what Nigel Farage and his supporters are asking us to believe, because they need to change the narrative in such a way that we see them as the victims here.
I was demonised. I mean, Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, many MPs, many broadcasters, newspaper columns said that I'd incited the riots by simply asking for the truth. I think the riots happened in many ways because of that lack of information.
That's a weird thing to say, that people started rioting because they were angry because they believed that the truth was being withheld from them by the authorities, even though you literally said this just before the riot started.
I just wonder whether the truth is being withheld from us.
He told people that the truth was being withheld from them, and now he's saying that people started rioting because they believed the truth was being withheld from them. That's pretty close to Nigel Farage admitting himself that he helped cause the riots. Like, he's trying to have it both ways, but he's at fault in both of those ways. He's creating 2 different narratives. One, that people were attacking minorities and Muslims because they were believing conspiracy theories, but he was one of the people that fueled those conspiracy theories. And 2, that they were rioting because they were angry that that the authorities were hiding stuff from them, but he was one of the people who told people that the authorities were hiding stuff from us. All while playing the victim because he was villainized, when 3/4 of British Muslims were scared for their lives because of the riots that he helped incite. Nigel Farage belongs in jail. I'm Femi. Make sure you follow F Politics so politics doesn't F you. Have a great week.